Welcome back to the Money Marketing Podcast. We spend decades coaching clients on how to save, accumulate, and watch their pots grow. But when the time comes to actually spend that money, many face a massive psychological barrier. I'm joined today by Ed Green from M&G to talk about fighting the saving mentality and why underspending is a real behavioral risk. Thanks for joining me today, Ed.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Kim.
So, Ed, why is the emotional shift from saving money to spending it so genuinely difficult for retirees? What is happening psychologically there?
It's a great question, Kim. I think it's something that impacts a lot of clients. I'd start off with the mentality that many clients come into retirement with. I mean, saving has been reinforced for decades. It becomes part of the client's identity. If you think about clients looking to retire, it almost asks clients to reverse that habit overnight, and that can be a really difficult mental shift to make. At the same time, it probably coincides with a period of great personal transition. Clients have often spent most of their adult lives working, and that work defines them as individuals, not only from the perspective of purpose, but from the perspective of security. We're all used to having an income come in each month at a certain point in time, and that gives us both financial security, but it also gives us emotional security because we always know that we're going to have sufficient income to meet our needs. It's often been described as something called the fragile decade, which is kind of like the 5 years pre and post retirement as clients start to transition from that saving mentality to a spending mentality. And it can be a period where clients become less rational, they become more reactive, because ultimately they're faced with quite complex decisions and having to use the assets that they've built up over a number of years to now spend. It's hard, particularly where that wealth often feels like sacred money that they've spent years laboriously building up. They've deferred spending that money, and it doesn't feel like spendable capital to them. So I think that's kind of the issue that clients face, particularly as well. I mean, we all carry out sort of budgeting each month. We know how much we need to spend on our living expenses. We have lifestyle expenses that are recurring. The gym membership, the golf club membership, the TV subscriptions, whatever we're used to spending on, and we can account for those out of income. Have to account for those out of capital. It becomes a lot harder, particularly when you think many clients are naturally averse to loss, and actually spending can feel like a failure. I've mentioned it's like that sacred money, accessing it and spending it. Even when a financial plan says it's affordable, every withdrawal from that pot you spent many years building up almost feels like a loss. And so we have the same kind of aversion to seeing our retirement funds going down. I mean, the issue is not irrationality. I mean, it's uncertainty, it's loss aversion, and it's fear of regret. And I think what that translates into is not the outcome that customers will run out of money. It's because they will run out of the ability to utilize that wealth. And I think the biggest risk and the biggest difficulty from shifting from saving to spending is not knowing you have sufficient assets. It's having the security and confidence to actually use that money when it's going to give you the quality of retirement that you've planned for many years.
We often see clients default to extreme caution and strict mental accounting where they treat certain pots as completely untouchable. How does this fear distort what should be a perfectly rational financial plan?
Again, it's another great point. I mean, I mentioned earlier, so we appreciate when we are working the security of having a regular income that comes in each month. We all carry out mental accounting that says, I need to put this for this part, this for this part. We're used to compartmentalizing money.
Yeah.
Often what you end up with is that's spendable, that's the emergency money, that's money I never touch because it's just there in case I need it. I mean, and those labels are often more emotional than financial. And it's just trying to unpick the decades of learnt behavior where we live month to month, salary to salary, paycheck to paycheck. It's trying to unpick that and get clients to look at their assets as a whole rather than segmented pots of, well, I've got this for that purpose, this for that purpose. As I said, those labels are often far more emotional and learnt than actually financially rational. And, as I mentioned in sort of a moment ago, often the retirement savings feels like the untouchable money because for so many years it's been untouched. We're so used to nurturing that fund. We're so used to helping that fund grow. We contribute to it diligently and we watch it grow, with the view of, well, that's for tomorrow. And for many clients, tomorrow never comes. And that's kind of the problem. It's like, when is tomorrow? And those labels can lead to holding more cash than we want. It leads us to preserve the wrong assets or, avoid sensible spending. Pensions are particularly difficult about this because they have an end date. You can access your pension until you reach pension age. So it's 55 for some people, but now moving to 57. So for many clients, that is the untouchable pot. When in actual fact, it's untouchable for the exact reason that it's there to provide you with an income in retirement. I think as well, increasingly we're seeing most clients approaching retirement without any form of secure income other than state pension.
Yeah.
So all of their retirement savings are capital. It feels wrong to deplete capital where we are so used to spending income. So great financial planning unlocks strategy, and advisors can help by giving clients a clear purpose for their money, whether that's lifestyle, living, luxury, legacy, by defining the purpose of, income in retirement or, assigning capital to specific purposes. It's kind of unwiring that mentality of, this money's for tomorrow, and when in fact actually it should be for today, and utilizing it effectively is really core to that problem. So it's kind of unpicking many decades of learned habit and helping clients, have the confidence to utilize their retirement wealth appropriately.
And I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that market volatility clearly plays a massive role here. Triggering behavioral overreactions, especially in the current climate. So, how can advisors give a client the confidence to spend their money intentionally, even when the headlines are quite grim?
I think the first thing is to start by acknowledging the fear.
Yeah.
And it's to kind of talk to customers about that. I mean, we see many rational clients who've spent years accumulating wealth and have lived through lots and lots of major events. So if you've got a client who's retiring, let's say 60 today, the backdrop that they've saved against is probably 20 to 30, 25 to 30 years. If you think back over the last 30-year period, we've had the global financial crisis. We've had everything that happened in between there. There's been lots of significant market events. We've had COVID. And you only have to look at what's happening in the world right now. We've had the impact of inflation. We've got persistent inflation and higher interest rates. And we've also got conflicts in both Europe and the Middle East that are ongoing. So it's natural to feel worried. So I think it's the first thing is to address that fear and say, yeah, the world is an uncertain place. But uncertainty is not something that has ever, it's not like it's more uncertain today. We've always faced uncertainty. What's really difficult and damaging is unmanaged uncertainty.
Yeah.
So volatility, but I mean, against that, volatility feels different when withdrawals are being taken. If we see our fund going down at precisely the moment we want to withdraw from it, we are more adverse to taking that payment. And we're more adverse to spending money. So the real risk isn't clients running out of money in volatile market conditions. It's clients putting off or delaying making decisions to spend on things that they've planned for many, many years.
Mhm.
We all dream of that, great retirement. The day I finish work, I'm going to go travel the world, I'm going to see friends, I'm going to see family. That risk aversion doesn't show up as I'm going to run out of money. The client doesn't come along and say, well, I'm worried that the market's gone down by X and my fund's depleted by Y and I now need to make Z to get back to it. What they say is, I might not go on that trip this year.
Yeah.
And that's the loss. That's the real loss. I mean, the risk is not just market risk. As I said, it's that decision risk. And ultimately, that can come through some real the real danger is not sequencing of return risk and clients running out of money. The risk is the client makes a decision that they cannot come back from.
Yeah.
It might be a decision to switch out into cash. It might be the decision to take control in perception and buy an annuity for the lifetime, and then realize that doesn't suit their circumstances. It may feel like taking back control to alleviate the stressful situation. So I think it's important that advisors agree a plan in outset. Increasingly, we see advisors use cash flow or some form of financial forecasting with customers to give them a better understanding of potential outcomes. That helps clients understand potential outcomes, and it sets and manages their expectations, and it allows advisors to use buffers and guardrails and some clear rules around when income can be taken, when income can be flexed. So it starts to manage that impact of volatility.
And people often view underspending as a good problem to have, but you argue otherwise.
No, I mean, I constantly have battled this with my own parents. My dad's a retired solicitor. He retired about 8-9 years ago.
Right.
He's got fairly decent retirement savings. He's also quite fortunate. He's got quite a bit of secure income. So the secure income him and my mum have meet their day-to-day living expenses fully and pretty much their lifestyle expenses. So that's great. But he's got this retirement savings pot. It's with Pru, obviously. He's got a son who works for M&G. But I'm constantly saying to him, you need to spend more. Well, no, I'm saying to him, why don't you, you love the south of France. Why don't you go and hire a house for a month? Oh, well, we've got the dog, we've got this, we've got Y. There's always some form of excuse.
Mm.
But at the same time, I know that, he's got a bad shoulder, a bad knee. He's constantly moaning about his back. 2 or 3 years' time, he may not have the health to enjoy that. And that's the real big risk.
Yeah.
We all have this natural aversion to running out of money. It's one of the biggest worries clients in retirement have is outliving their assets.
Yeah.
And yet many clients die wealthier than they retire and look back and regret not having spent that money at a point where they have sufficient health to have enjoyed it. And ultimately, what I'm trying to get at with my parents is, look, you're getting older, you're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
One day you're not going to be able to do what you can do now, so why not do it now? Don't worry about tomorrow, enjoy it today. You're not going to run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost giving clients that confidence.
Yeah, I feel I can resonate with you, with your family. My mother doesn't struggle with that very much. She has been consistently traveling and seeing more of the world, especially because I think she knows, her health isn't getting any better, but she wants to see all these places and walk as much as possible. But my dad, he's a different story.
Yeah, but you have to understand that. I mean, particularly where you've been spent years building up wealth, and the measure of success was an extra zero on your pension balance. We've been through that period where it's, I'm being virtuous, I'm being good, I've saved money, I've been great, I've built up this retirement pot. It goes back to what I was saying about loss aversion. It materializes in many different ways. Obviously, there's the obvious one with market volatility, but it's seeing that capital that we've built up being depreciated. My parents are the complete opposite. They're much like your mum. They've spent as much time as possible traveling. And for them, it's a race to get in as many trips before their health stops them from doing it.
Exactly.
I mean, if I'm honest, I'd much rather enjoy a retirement like my parents-in-law than my parents, because I like, I aspire to that. But obviously, everybody has their own individual circumstances. If you had my dad here and he said, "Well, I don't need it. That's never been my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Enjoy what I do. I have enough."
Yeah.
And that's an important facet to recognise. Somebody who says, "I'm going to take up skiing. I'm going to go watch Formula One and follow the F1 round the world." If they haven't already done that when they've been working, the chances of them doing that when they're retiring is a very different thing. So it's very much about making sure you understand the client's needs and objectives, and you can create a robust financial plan that just doesn't model well on paper, but also functions really in the real world and gives clients the confidence to live the lifestyle that they want.
Yeah. And with the evolution of the client, how does an advisor's duty of care evolve here? Is it their job just to run mathematical cash flow? Let me start that again, sorry. So with the evolving lifestyle of a client, how does the advisor's duty of care evolve here? Is it their job just to look at running mathematical cash flow models, or is it fundamentally about coaching for confidence and flexibility?
I think if I was being honest, I would say it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think for many clients, where cash flow is so powerful is it shows them a potential future outcome.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest risks we have in retirement is making decisions that can travel across multiple decades. We could be retired for 20, 30 plus years. So being able to make a decision that impacts that time frame can be very, very hard. When something's hard, we mistake that for complex. When something is complex, it makes us feel uncertain. And when we are uncertain, we feel anxious. And that leads to kind of one or two outcomes. We either are impulsive, that we make a decision because that feels like taking back control. I must make this decision. Or the other one is we put off or prevent making decisions. Those are two opposites, but they're an outcome of the same thing, which is mistaking uncertainty for complexity and putting off or rushing a difficult decision. Cash flow unlocks that. It helps clients make more rational decisions. But I think the real thing about that is, whilst cash flow is essential, I don't think it's enough. So cash flow should go beyond that. It should show what's affordable. It should help clients feel safe enough to act. So the advisor's role moves from optimization to translation, and that's where that coaching and behavioral support comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously we're not so specifically focusing on product or solutions at this kind of point, but a great analogy I'd bring in at this point is kind of saying, if you're a golfer, I'm not a golfer, but I know lots of people are, it's possible to play a round of golf with a single club. You either have to be incredibly talented or very lucky to have a good round of golf.
Yeah.
Most golfers have a bag of clubs for different situations and different needs. Whether you're driving, whether you're playing out the rough, whether you're putting, you have a different tool. Ultimately, all of those tools are helping you achieve the same thing, which is have a good round of golf. So where I'm kind of going with this is, cash flow is kind of like the golf bag.
Yeah.
And into that, you can put the different tools, and then the different tools inform the client of potential outcomes. So where we start to see is advisors talking about layering of income and alignment of different retirement tools, whether that's an annuity, flexible drawdown, a cash buffer, whether that's a smooth fund, whether that's a fixed term annuity, whatever the product is, but aligning it to a specific need. And then clients can start to sort of understand, the purpose of things in retirement, and they can say, okay, well, that's doing what I need it to do. So the outcome is not just a suitable portfolio, it's a plan that the client can live with in real life. And you can create the most efficient plan on paper, but it doesn't hold up to the real world stresses and how clients react. Clients understand what they can spend, what they should preserve. The kind of plan shows through. Cash flow is the framework, is the blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Advisors' experience and knowledge and the time and years they spent facing off to clients gives them the real world experience to translate that into something the client can understand and, kind of be comfortable with. I mean, as you mentioned, the model is the maths, but the advisor is the translation. It's the human element that exists within that. And often it's the experience that the advisor has had facing off to many different clients over many years to kind of spot the subtle tell signs that the client isn't quite comfortable. It models well on paper, but the client's not quite comfortable with it. And there might be the need to make some compromise to make clients feel more comfortable. Because ultimately you don't need this much in cash, but if it really makes the client feel sufficiently comfortable, you might hold a little bit more. So there is a human element that's very important. You can't have one with the other, in my opinion. You need cash flow because it's a framework, but you need the advisor's ability to translate that into real world confidence to give the clients the confidence to spend.
Right. Well, Ed, thank you. And that was a fascinating look at the human side of financial planning. To discover how M&G and the Home of Retirement delivers the products, tools, and insights you need to address behavior shifts and support your clients through every stage of life, please do visit M&G. So thanks for listening. Thank you for joining me today, Ed.
It's been a pleasure, Kim. Thanks for letting me take part.